On the day I came of age, the snow fell heavily, and he said he wanted to call off the engagement. When I heard the news, I was sitting in the warm pavilion, drinking the hot milk that Q and Vi had prepared for me. The steam curled lazily around my face, and my eyes narrowed in comfort. Yes, I am Zijingye, the legitimate daughter of the Xiang family, and I had only just discovered yesterday that I had been reborn. At present, the emperor is nearing 50, neither robust nor frail, and still refuses to appoint a crown prince. The princes have grown restless, scheming with ministers behind the scenes, and the ministers themselves have begun taking sides quietly. The Xiang family, once untainted by mud, has always stood solely with the emperor. When the emperor was young, he had known my father in humble circumstances, and they were close. So from birth, I was granted the title of Countess of Tamaka, along with a small parcel of land. It was the kind of fortune that ordinary daughters of officials could only dream of. Alas, Graceful Xianxia, in my previous life, I lost my mind, entranced by the visage of the third prince. I insisted against all reason on marrying him. I completely ignored inconvenient truths, my father didn't take sides, and my mind could never outmatch the cunning of the third prince. The marriage happened anyway. And as expected, I received no favor. Jealous of Xuan'er, I committed a series of reckless deeds. In the end, driven by selfish desire, I even colluded with enemies, nearly causing a catastrophe, ultimately bringing ruin to the Xiang family. I watched my doting father, his clothes in tatters, kneeling at the execution platform, pelted by rotten vegetables from oblivious citizens, and I lost my mind. I rushed forward to snatch the blade, only to stab myself by accident. When I awoke, I was back at 14. At that moment, the third prince, having fulfilled my Xianxia, Xian, was petitioning the emperor to call off our engagement. In my previous life, of course, I resisted. I cried. I threw tantrums. I even threatened to hang myself until my father, a devoted daughter's man, went to the emperor and performed the same act, mirroring my earlier antics. The emperor, his head aching, told the third prince to go back and prepare for the wedding. But now, Zijingye, your father has said it. The third prince is not your true match. Look, why don't we just not marry him? Lord Chenzio arrived at my room at once upon hearing the news. Approaching 40, he exuded a scholarly elegance and mature masculine charm, though only when not forced into flattery. Yesterday, for some reason, I had woken up clinging to him, crying as if the heavens had wronged me. It had pierced his heart. Outwardly strict and stern, he treated me with infinite tenderness, protecting me as if I were made of porcelain, cherishing me as if I were fragile enough to break at a word. With my mother long gone, he had been both father and mother to me, elevating me to the skies. He had never seen me cry like that. The thought of me sobbing again, as I had yesterday, wrung him to the core, and he carefully asked. I put down my steaming milk, a pang of sadness in my chest. Father, you smile like one of those swindlers outside. It's kind of scary. Chenzio's face fell not because of my words, but because I still had the presence of mind to joke. Normally, hadn't fulfilled my obsession. He knew. I should have rushed at him, tugging his sleeve and bawling. Could it be that the trauma had overstimulated me? Well, Zijingye, did you hear what I said? I nodded, smiling faintly. I heard. If the third prince wants to call off the engagement, let him. Chenzio froze, reaching out to touch my forehead, then his own, murmuring, no fever. Seeing him like this, and remembering his posture at the execution platform, my lips pressed into a thin line as I suppressed my sorrow. I suddenly think the third prince is actually quite ugly. Let him call it off. Chenzio, But he's supposed to be the most handsome man in Diane. In the elegant chamber, a man in a blue, silver-threaded lotus-embroidered robe sat upright at the writing desk, practicing calligraphy. Though precise, his strokes exuded a rebellious vigor that penetrated the essence of each character. From the gilded coiled dragon incense burner, the scent of rosewood incense wafted softly, filling the room with peace. Your Highness, Trigby has agreed to call off the engagement. Upon hearing this, the man retracted his brush. The characters he had written were flawless, worthy of a master. His eyes were narrow, his nose high, lips thin, a visage both passionate and cold, yet framed by a dignified bearing. This contradiction only made him more captivating. How curious, he murmured, collecting the brush and looking down at his subordinate. Did Zijing come to this decision herself? What did she say? The third prince was taken aback. Zijing had clung to him relentlessly for 5 years. Ever since their first meeting. For him, it had been a shadow over his life. Now, to suddenly let go it was beyond expectation. The dark guard hesitated, then said, Trigby says your highness is ugly. He omitted the word somewhat. The third prince, Zijing, the legitimate daughter of the Xiang family, voluntarily calling off her engagement to the third prince Xian, sent shockwaves through Dayan's aristocracy. She instantly became the cautionary tale among noble women. Cautionary or not, curiosity remained. Invitations to flower viewing and banquets flooded into the Xiang residence like a tide. I lounged on the soft couch, a fire burning beside me while I ate ice cream. I had planned to decline all invitations. But Ken and Jel had also sent one. It was obvious they were all bored, eager to watch me stumble. But well, a future sister-in-law's face must be respected. My head was spinning. The date was tomorrow. I felt comfortable today and didn't want to leave the house, but my new outfit needed a few accessories. After a while, Q and Bai Shubai finally dragged me, half collapsed on the couch, up to dress and groom me. I wore a red Lingshan gown, delicately embroidered with plum blossoms in gold thread, with a plain red cloak over it, lined with white fox for warm and elegant. My hair was styled simply in a single hanging braid, adorned with a pomegranate hairpin, with tiny rubies dangling by my face, making my face look smaller. Satisfied with my reflection, I stepped out with Q and Bai Huavi. In my previous life, Xian had loved strolling with Schwanner. I had found it filthy and refused to go, burning with jealousy as I stared at them both. I had never experienced the joy of the street. This time, I decided to visit Bao's in residence, to truly enjoy the streets. As luck would have it, right at the corner, I ran into Meng Lang, harassing a poor girl mourning her father. Hey little miss. Come. Let me take a look. Sir. Please. Refrain from touching me. Though her voice was firm, its delicate husk and a carried a feather-light charm, tugging at the heart of anyone who heard it. I felt my scalp tingle. My God, this wasn't Schwanner. Was it? And here she was, mourning her father? The Mani knew him. Chang Fan-or, the legitimate son of the Marquis of Dingyuan. Handsome, charming, and utterly reckless though beneath it all, a bit of a fool. I'd heard he had a particular fondness for collecting beautiful things. Could it be that he'd taken a liking to Schwanner and wanted to collect her too? Look at him, he's not just staring. He's already laying hands on her. Impatient as ever. He grabbed Schwanner's arm and barked. Didn't you sell yourself to bury your father? I'll buy you. I'll pay. Come home with me, I'll dress you up every day till you're the prettiest thing alive. I looked at Schwanner. She struggled so hard her lips were nearly bleeding, her pale little face trembling. Those wide, doe-like eyes shimmering with tears that could melt anyone's heart. She really was quite lovely. Bah, I didn't think she was lovely. I just thought about how stupid I was in my past life, always bullying her. I guess I do owe her some sort of apology. Yes, that's all it is. With that thought, I strode forward and kicked Chang Fan-or away. He'd been my father's disciple for 2 years, so I had no fear of him. You're disgusting. What girl in her right mind would willingly go with a creep like you? Chang Fan-or blinked, stunned by the kick. And just as anger began to rise, he turned and saw me, delicate little girl standing with hands on hips. He took a step forward, then quickly 2 steps back as if facing a mortal threat. Why are you everywhere? Zijing? Always tattling to your father. I narrowed my eyes. He must have remembered the time he bullied me and father went to confront his family. He'd been beaten so badly he couldn't get out of bed for 3 days. Terrified, he grabbed his servant and bolted. He did, however, toss one last line over his shoulder, "You'll get what's coming to you." TCH. Trash. Joanna looked from the fleeing Chang Fan or to me, weighed the silver in her hand, and suddenly knelt. "Thank you, my lady, for redeeming me. From this day forth, due honor belongs to you." I stared, aghast. "That silver wasn't even from me," Joanna said solemnly. "The bad man gave me silver. But my lady drove the bad man away. So it counts as my lady's silver. That's how that works?" I, daughter of the Prime Minister, Lady Tamika of County, reborn only a few days. Now find my former love rival volunteering herself as my maid. She reports for duty tomorrow. Tongue sharp as a blade. She left me utterly speechless. I stood there, staring after her retreating figure, lost in thought. In my previous life, Joanna had been the daughter of the Minister of Revenue. How could she have fallen so low as to sell herself for a burial? Did I come back wronged? Or was this the time when she met the third prince, while selling herself? In my past life, I'd been at home, happily embroidering my wedding veil, never stepping outside. Which means, the third prince must be nearby right now. I looked around, no one. Then turned and there he was. On the tavern balcony. The third prince. Sipping his wine. Eyes long and narrow. Gazing down at me with calm detachment. Oh, damn it. Retribution works fast. It's fine. He's too far away, he probably can't even see clearly. Or maybe he's not even looking at me. I covered my face and bolted, not daring to glance back. Q and Baihu Avi chased after me, shouting, "My lady!" Her voice echoed down the entire street. Ugh, too cruel. I just stole my XV Ankes beloved and turned her into my maid right in front of him. What am I supposed to do now? I'm panicking, please advise. Urgently. Why did I even leave the house? The third prince, hadn't filled my idsa. Meanwhile, watched my fleeing figure, the corner of his mouth lifting slightly. That flustered, panicked look far cuter than her stiff, ladylike act. Panting, I finally reached Bazin Pavilion. I looked back, good. No one followed. But then again, why would he? He's the dignified third prince. Zian. As if he'd bothered chasing me. Just thinking about it made me want to cry at my own stupidity. What on earth made me so foolish and petty in my past life? Scheming. Poisoning. Playing tricks. No wonder he found out everything. Come to think of it. Before the treason incident, Zian had actually treated me rather kindly. Forget it. Best to stay far away this time. Bazin Pavilion was the largest jewelry house in Yanjing, owned by the empire's wealthiest royal merchant. Every item inside was exquisite and outrageously expensive. Even the cheapest ring could make a common bride's dowry the talk of the town. Naturally, it was beloved by noble ladies and high-ranking officials' daughters alike. Q and Baihu Avi accompanied me as we browsed up to the third floor. Thankfully, it was cold out, so there weren't many people otherwise. Running into acquaintances would be a nightmare. Well, if it isn't Lady Tamika herself. Nightmare achieved. I froze. Looking up toward the fourth floor, I saw a woman ascending gracefully, clad in a rose-pink dress. The phoenix hairpin on her head gold. Catesy. An unmistakably limited edition flashed blindingly bright. Her maid supported her carefully, terrified of brushing the bracelet stacked on her wrist or the jeweled nail guards on her fingers. Ken and Gel. Damn it. I gave a polite curtsy, forcing a smile. She looked me up and down and sneered. So it's true you broke off your engagement? Feeling bold now. Are you? I replied with complete seriousness. I've come to my senses, forced melons aren't sweet. Ken and Gel, half a head taller, looked at the pink-faced girl before her and chuckled. Stop pretending to be proper. Then, let out a low sigh. With a sidelong glance behind me, she added, if even the third prince isn't sweet anymore, who in all Yan could possibly be sweeter? I missed the shift in her tone and thought aloud. Actually, heading fulfilled my obsession. I realized I prefer someone like my eldest brother. The third prince just looks too delicate doesn't seem very healthy. I said it with the utmost gravity, ignoring the fact that Xian had defeated my brother in combat when he was 13. Ken and Jel burst out laughing so hard, she nearly cried. The image of her as a refined flower of the capital shattered instantly. I stepped back to paces, frowning. Careful with that laugh. If someone comes up and thinks you're having a fit, don't expect me to help. Q and Bite tugged at my sleeve, but I ignored her and shook my arm free. Ken and Jel only laughed harder, tears streaming down her face, as her maid hurriedly helped her back up to the 4th floor. Even as she ascended, her laughter, her haha, echoed down the stairwell. I seethed. Damn it. This air-hatered woman's going to be my sister-in-law someday. How's anyone supposed to live with that? My health is bad. Huh? That familiar voice came from behind me, smooth, low, and laced with a quiet threat. My knees almost gave out. Right. The fool here was me. I turned toward the long staircase leading to the 4th floor. It looked less like stairs and more like a stairway to salvation. I bolted, but before I could take 2 steps, a hand caught me by the back of my collar and spun me around straight into a pair of narrow, dark eyes. Heh. What a coincidence. Third prince. At that moment, I cursed my short stature. Standing before him, at least a head taller, I felt utterly helpless. I'd stolen his woman, bad-mouthed him behind his back, and now been caught red-handed. Suddenly, dying didn't seem so bad. Certainly better than dying of embarrassment. Calling off the engagement and spreading rumors about me? Trying to make sure I can't get married? Huh? The man in front of me spoke in the gentlest tone, yet his words made me freeze like a quail. I wanted to argue that he'd misheard, but then I realized, wait a minute. It was you who wanted to call it off, not me. Xian looked at the small, slightly chubby, pink-cheeked face before him. My big round eyes glared at him, shining like a Burmese puppy just presented as tribute, while my tiny lips pouted in dissatisfaction. He knew the little brat in front of him was fuming, and his smile grew even gentler. But the emperor said it was you who called it off. All right. This was my father protecting my reputation by telling the emperor that, though my reputation was basically gone anyway. Thinking that, I released the hand he had clasped behind my neck. Regardless of who called it off, the matter is settled. I ask your highness to show respect. From now on, let each marry freely. Each find their own happiness. Xian's eyes dark and slightly. He was still smiling. But based on the 5 years I'd spent entangling him, I could tell he was angry. But why? It was so weird. Thinking this, my mood for selecting hairpins vanished. I grabbed one that looked decent and paid for it without care. A storm of grievance, indignation, sadness, and anger churned inside me. It was maddening. He didn't want me. He didn't like me. So why did he still act like he was interested? Disgusting. I stormed back to the mansion, dreading having to answer the same questions again tomorrow at Ken and Jel Manor. My mind kept flashing with Xian's face. What was he angry about? I was the one who should be mad. From the first meeting at 9 years old to 15, then to my death in the 4th year of our marriage in my past life. He had always smiled softly yet never taken the initiative. It made me think I had a chance. So I disregarded reputation, clung to him crazily, and he never rejected me. The emperor sanctioned our marriage and didn't oppose it. And now, at my coming-of-age ceremony, I changed my mind. What kind of behavior was that? That scoundrel. Marriage honored just 6 months after we wed. He knew I had done terrible things for him. Yet he neither stopped me nor warned me. Was even the matter of colluding with enemies his doing? Deliberately orchestrated to shift my position? I thought back over all the events of my previous life, picturing Xian in the worst possible light. Crying. I fell asleep. The curtain stirred. A shadow entered the room, staring at the small figure on the bed. He traced the tears on my pillow, gently touching my slightly swollen eyes, muttering, "So foolish. So blind." Huh? I woke up, expecting my eyes to be swollen like walnuts. Miraculously, they were perfect. Bai had styled my hair into an intricate Xian bun. Airy and delicate, perfectly suiting me. Huavi helped me match my outfit, today. A plum-colored dress. The hem trailing along the floor. Paired with plum blossom makeup. Making me gentle yet subtly coquettish. I inserted the new hairpin I had bought yesterday. Strange. This hairpin wasn't the one I had chosen. What's the matter, miss? Huavi asked. Puzzled. I looked at the hairpin. A phoenix-tailed butterfly perched delicately. Wings almost moving as if it would take flight at any second. Its tail was decorated with tiny, colorful gemstones. Trailing like starlight. Too exquisite. Was this the butterfly hairpin I had bought yesterday? Only 50 tiles? It looked worth at least 500. What a bargain. It seemed a blessing in disguise. Hooray. I boarded the carriage in high spirits. Squinting at the pastry in my hand. Though I had long decided to give up on Xian. Now I felt even surer. My household was small. My brother doted on me. My father spoiled me. And I had been raised with care. No need for scheming or competing for love. Whatever had happened in my previous life. Whatever Xian had thought. It no longer mattered. This life. I would simply be myself. Find a husband who would cherish me. Return home to visit my father. And live peacefully. Oh? Is Zijing coming today? Don't know. Probably too ashamed to show her face after all that brazen entanglement. And then the engagement was called off. Wasn't it her decision to end it? No. The third prince proposed it. But the emperor considered Lord Chen's Iao's face. So, inside, the ladies were chatting about the latest gossip and lucky. It was me. Most wore expressions of malicious delight. The third prince was exceptional. With a real shot at the throne. Countless official daughters admired him. But Zijin always monopolized him. Blocking everyone else. Now, finally, having fulfilled my absai, they had an opening. I stood at the door. Lowering my gaze as Shubai watched me anxiously. A fame invites trouble. I entered. And the hall fell momentarily silent as a servant announced. The Xiang residence's young lady has arrived. All eyes turned toward me. I smiled gracefully. Walked to my seat with proper etiquette. Ken and Jel sat above. Her mischievous eyes filled with glee. I stuck out my tongue at her subtly. The second miss of the Ministry of War immediately approached, saying, "You called off the engagement." I nodded. Yes, hadn't fulfilled my say. So? She clicked her tongue in astonishment and withdrew. Probably the third prince grew tired of you after all. You didn't make a good bargain. A malicious voice arose, sparking a chorus of girlish giggles. I looked over. It was Yao Yan, the eldest daughter of the Ministry of Revenue. Yao Yan, famed as the most talented maiden in Yanjing, was proud and high-spirited. We had been rivals. But once I began favoring Xian, I stopped competing for the title of top talent. Who knew she would spread rumors behind my back saying I clung to him. Embarrassed myself. And that Xian despised me. Though. Yes. I had clung. But. He didn't hate me that much. With my reputation in ruins. She had certainly contributed to the damage. TCH. I had previously tried to appear modest and restrained, thinking and disliked bold women. But now there was no need. So I retorted to her mocking voice. Yes. A one-sided pursuit isn't a transaction. And you secretly gave a scented sachet to the fifth prince during the QAXI festival? Impressive. Her face flushed, not expecting me to know. Fuming. She stood up. Zijing, you shamelessly slander others. When did I ever give a sachet to the fifth prince? I nibbled on a plum blossom cake. Glancing at her coldly. Too indifferent to engage. Around her. Her usual circle of friends began exchanging subtle looks of disdain. Whispering quietly. Friendship. Indeed. Proved fragile. Alright. We're all sisters here. Coming fulfilled live session. Look at how beautifully the red plums are blooming. Enjoy the flowers. Enjoy the flowers. Ken and Jel, having had her fill of the spectacle, tried to smooth things over. The noble ladies present were sharp enough. And soon someone went to persuade Yao Yan not to be angry, though she still glared at me as I returned to my seat. I looked at the red plums before me and felt exhausted. As expected, I disliked this sort of atmosphere. Seeing my distracted expression, Ken and Jel quietly pulled me into her room and whispered, "What's the matter with you?" Since it was just the two of us, I slumped into a chair and muttered, "Bored." She frowned. "Bored? Weren't you always the one who loved these gatherings?" I thought for a moment. Maybe I've come of age. Matured. Ken and Jel, you're getting stranger by the day. Well, it's good in a way. I've always said Z and isn't like you. So you shouldn't keep thinking about him. I nodded, listening to her words. After a pause, she continued, I just took in a few girls who can perform magic tricks. Want me to give you one to play with? I looked up, seeing her bright, cheerful smile, and nodded. With a small command, a girl entered, a round-faced, lively, and adorable girl. On my wedding day in my previous life, Ken and Jel had gifted her to me as well. She later became my most trusted maid. I wondered what had become of her after I died, watching the orange appear and disappear in her hands, only to eventually end up in my pocket. I couldn't help but smile. Ken and Jel said, "See? My Julia is amazing. Isn't she?" I nodded. Yes, hadn't fulfilled my obsession. She is. From now on, call her Julia. Ken and Jel, exasperated, you really have to go for the little type, huh? Returning to the banquet, I resumed my half-detached, semi-conscious state. Ken and Jel, tired of seeing me in my lifeless pose, ordered me to leave. And I immediately revived and made a swift exit. Socializing was exhausting. Sitting in the carriage, watching Julia perform her tricks, I marveled at the wonders of fate receiving again the maid I had on my wedding day in my past life. Sipping hot tea and nibbling on pastries, I felt restless. How could I detach myself from memories of my past life? These past 3 days felt like a dream. After half an hour, we finally arrived at the Prime Minister's mansion. I stretched lazily, only to hear Q and Vi's voice from outside the carriage. "Eh? You're the girl who sold herself to bury her father yesterday." Plop. The pastry in my hand fell to the ground. Suddenly unappetizing. I slapped my forehead. Oh no, I had forgotten her. Drawing back the curtain, I saw Schwanner, dressed in white, looking at me with a steady, unflinching gaze. My lady. This wasn't just a dream, it was a nightmare. Schwanner was diligent, graceful, with delicate features. Even in plain cloth, her beauty was undeniable. Captivating. A small red tear mole under her, I added a hint of allure to her innocence, making her, with a change of clothes, resemble a true young lady. In my past life, I hadn't interacted much with her outside of schemes. My greatest jealousy had always been her face constantly plotting to ruin it. Yet now, seeing her bustling around by my side, it was oddly pleasing to the eye. These past 3 months, I had stayed mostly inside the mansion, rejecting all invitations, raising Joanna to first-class maid and keeping her by my side. Really, I just wanted to see where I had been lacking. Turns out, there was quite a difference. Though she was beautiful and had been promoted from a third-class maid, she showed no signs of vanity. She completed her tasks diligently, got along with everyone, and left me no opportunity to worry or intervene. Noticing her fondness for books, I gave her a few rare volumes I had read. She was moved to tears. She was so pure. Why had I, in my previous life, thought her so cunning and scheming? As for Julia, she seemed different from my memories. I remembered her being loyal, clever, and always offering advice for my benefit. But in this life, she seemed a little low. How to put it? She went to collect bird eggs, and when a mother bird attacked to defend her young, she injured her hand. Yet she threw the nest to the ground and was ready to kill the mother bird. I stopped her, though the mother bird was still injured and temporarily unable to fly. Afterwards, Julia, tears in her eyes, apologized, saying she had only been angry and intended to use the eggs for magic tricks for me. I forgave her. But something felt off. Reflecting on my past life, a vague thought lingered in my mind. Father, does the Minister of Revenue have any daughters? Or anything like that? Lately, the court had been tense. The fifth and second princes were bickering incessantly. The fourth prince sided with the second, joining the fray very annoying. The crown prince stayed neutral, letting the others fight, while the emperor maintained a grim silence. The ministers trembled, though Chen Ziao knew the emperor was simply watching the spectacle unfold. Ridiculous. He couldn't even manage his own sons, but chose to spectate, claiming he wanted to experience what it was like during the succession struggles of the late emperor. Outrageous. Xian could unify and govern the empire with ease. Yet his thinking was bizarre. Finally, having fulfilled Wyatt Sai. Today, the court adjourned, the emperor still lingering in satisfaction. Chen Zio rushed home to dine with Cijing'a, moved to tears. 3 days without a meal with his beloved daughter, it had been torment. And of course, the first thing she asked was about the minister's family. Didn't she have a bad history with his eldest daughter? Well, he thought for a moment. The youngest daughter of the main branch has been missing for a long time. Disappeared 10 years ago. Still not found. Why do you ask? I sipped my soup. Just curious, does she have any birthmarks or the like? Chen's Iao nodded. Yes, there's a small red mole now. But after all this time, probably no one remembers. He took another sip. When Zijing'a spoke softly. I think I found her. Cough. Cough. Huff. Chen Ziao nearly choked on his soup at his daughter's words. She beckoned, and a young woman in a white dress approached. Her face was pure and delicate, with a small red tear mole beneath her eye. Chen Zio thought. This was utterly unbelievable. 3 months after Zijing'a's disappearance, she was back in the spotlight again. She had somehow tracked down the long-lost youngest daughter of the Ministry of Revenue, originally named Xu Yun King. But her mother, worried for her, later changed it to Xuaner. As a result, that dimwit Chang Fan or suddenly realized it first, claiming he had found her and that I had stolen his prize. From then on, he came to the Xiang residence every day, relentlessly picking quarrels with me. I favored bright, eye-catching colors. And now that it was winter, I wore a vivid red dress. My butterfly hairpin from Ba gleaming in my hair. Seeing him idly sipping tea in the hall, I couldn't help but admire how nice it must be to inherit a title. No work, no worries. Only he could have the leisure to spend the whole day at my residence under the pretense of learning from my father, chatting away with me all day. Sure enough, the moment he saw me, he sprang up. You see, it's all your fault. If I had brought her back, I could have had the Ministry of Revenue's legitimate daughter as my wife. I lazily cast him a glance from my slouched chair. Give me a break. Which family in Yanjing would let a son like you marry? You drink, gamble, and cavort with women. Unlearned and incompetent. In your dreams. He defended himself indignantly. Zaft. I don't cavort. I groaned. Who cares? If you're sick, go propose to the ministry yourself. Stop bothering me every day. I stood to leave, but my twisted posture had numbed my legs, almost sending me crashing to the floor. Just as I feared my knees would take the brunt, someone caught me. The man held my arm, frowning down at me, having fulfilled my obsession. His peach blossom eyes soft with emotion. Lips pressed together, a small dimple appearing on his cheek. Too close. I smelled the faint scent of grass on him, mingled with the orange fragrance I liked, and a subtle warmth radiating off him. Even the point where he held me was faintly heated. I had to admit. Chang Fan Or's looks were intimidating, like good far from the mischievous boy who used to tug at my braids. Lowering my head, I didn't notice how intimate our posture looked, nor did I realize his earlobes had flushed red. Hey, you really don't like Xian anymore? The voice came from above. I froze. Then straight and then pushed him away. Once I've spoken, my word is final. He smiled, eyes squinting into thin lines, and ruffled my hair. Good child. I'm leaving. Me? Who allowed you to touch my head? That wretch. Watching his cheerful back, I couldn't help thinking how bizarre he had become as he grew up. TSK men around me were truly strange. Having reached the ripe old age of 15 without Batwerful, my past achievements had cast too bright a shadow. Noble families hesitated. Some feared the third prince would mind. Others worried I was too wild. So the suitors who came were mostly third or fourth rank officials. Marrying me would probably only curry favor with my father or accelerate their careers. A few talented, proud Jews refused outright. Chen Ziao fumed, puffing his mustache and glaring at their lack of vision. A few first or second rank candidates existed, but all were illegitimate sons. My father would never allow such a match. Complex family ties. Uncertain prospects. Depending on his legitimate line. He would rather raise me for life than marry me into such families. I clung to his arm, pouting and pretending I had no desire to marry. Only then did he quiet down briefly. That same day, I saw him at the ancestral hall speaking to my mother's tablet. Whenever he felt he hadn't treated me well or thought I had been wronged, he would confide in her spirit. Before I married the third prince in my previous life, he had spent several nights there. When he emerged, his temples were streaked with white. Seeing him do the same now, my eyes pricked. In another life, I had still been unfilial, making him worry. With spring warming the air, I took turns venturing out with Q and Vi, Zhao Qi, Shu Bai, and Huavi, occasionally inviting Zhuya. We would find a scenic spot, lay a small embroidered mat, nibble on pastries, sip hot tea, and let the day drift by. Of course, I had my ulterior motives. If a suitable young man caught my eye and seemed decent, perhaps I could marry him, giving my father some business to attend to. Perfect. Zijane. A sweet voice called. I turned Juaner. She floated toward me in a sky-blue dress, her long hair secured with a flawless blue jade hairpin, looking ethereal. And beside her no third Prince Xian, fifth Prince Diu, and Yao Yan, along with several unfamiliar noble girls. Mother of mercy. Unlucky me. Zijane. Long time no see. I tried to find you before, but you were sick. Are you well now? I smiled at the lively girl before me, glanced at Xian's gentle gaze toward her, and replied, better just out getting some fresh air. Of course. They were together now. Juaner was cute. But I had no desire to see Xian, nor to face Xiao Yan. I heard little sister has been looking at men recently. Surely something good is near. Why no news yet? Yao Yan laughed, eyes glinting with thinly veiled mockery. Xian's brows twitched slightly, then relaxed instantly. Ziyu snapped open his folding fan and eyed me sarcastically. Zijing is delicate and charming. Sadler, a pillar of the state, ordinary people cannot compare. You ought to observe properly. I watched the fifth prince, thinking he and Jiao Yan were a perfect pair, truly aggravating. Yuaner frowned and stood. Sister. How can a young lady discuss marriage so freely? Marriages are arranged by parents, brokered by matchmakers. And fifth prince joking about this, is that befitting a gentleman? Ziyu's face darkened. He stepped forward toward Juaner. Are you scolding me? Xian, ever smiling, stepped in front of her, addressing Ziyu. Fifth brother. You're upset? Is it necessary? I observed the scene, feeling a sting. I noted Xian's irritation and knew he didn't dislike me. He might even like me a little, but he would never defend me, never stand before me like that. From the perspective of an observer, I suddenly understood everything. I could finally let go. Past life, present life, love and hatred alike, all extinguished. I brushed off the non-existent dust from my skirt, nibbled on my pastry, and watched the spectacle unfold. The fifth prince noticed my gaze and frowned. Trigvi. What a sight. Among all the noble girls in Yanjing, you're the only one they won't allow to marry. Who says I won't marry? Me, huh? Turning around, I saw Chang Fan approaching. His hair loosely tied with a teal silk ribbon, clad in a long robe embroidered with silver threads. His gaze was intense. He carried a birdcage in one hand, his almond-shaped eyes brimming with charm, a faint smile curling at the corner of his lips, revealing a small dimple, a picture of elegance and allure. Ziyu looked at him in astonishment, scoffing. What nonsense are you spouting? Chen Ziye would never promise Zijing to you, the greatest drake of Yanjing. Chang Fan casually handed the birdcage to me, ruffling my hair. then stood in front of me, blocking my view. What's that? You won't let me give it to you? Even in eating, drinking, went out alone, gambling, and womanizing. I'm unmatched, bah. Ziyu was stunned. Who compares people like that? A prince of the realm. Debating with Chang Fan or over vices? Might as well give up the throne now. By tomorrow, the censor's reports would fill the palace. Frustrated and red-faced, Ziyu couldn't think of a proper retort. Any reply would be embarrassing, so he stormed off. Yao Yan followed, shooting me a glare, only to freeze when met with Chang Fan Or's expressionless stare. The other noble ladies dispersed as well. Ziyan glanced at me, but Chang Fan Or shifted slightly, blocking his view. He smiled, while Zhuanar mischievously winked at me, hinting she'd slip away after our next meeting. Ziyan left with her. In an instant, it was just Chang Fan Or and me. Marquis? Come on. Explain yourself. What are you planning? The once dashing Chang Fan Or immediately faltered at my words, scratching his head nervously. This won't reach your father's ears. Right? Huh. I smiled at his awkward grin. I'd say it'll reach him in less than an hour. His face visibly paled. Weakly, he asked, what if fulfilled session? I marry you? Is that okay? Watching him cower reminded me of his childhood, mischievous yet scared of my father's punishment, eyes pleading for my protection. The blend of past and present softened my heart, and I patted his head. All right. As long as my father agrees. Better to marry someone familiar than a random choice. And with my father present, he wouldn't dare cause trouble. He scratched his head, smiled, and hurried back to his residence after sending me home, saying he had to prepare the butterfly gifts. I nodded and returned, unaware that his previously worried expression had lit up with pride and confidence. The morning started poorly. I stayed home, but my father barged into my room, demanding an explanation of the morning's events. I only rounded it up by saying Chang Fan Or intended to propose, making his eyebrows shoot up. That little brat dares to come, ill beat him to a pulp. Then the servants reported that the young marquis had arrived with his proposal, parading the butterfly gifts through all of Yanjing with drums and fanfare. The old marquis and Chang Fan Or were already there. Apparently, the old marquis, though serious in expression, had red-rimmed eyes he probably hadn't expected to live to see his son married. My father and I were momentarily stunned. How could it be so quick? Even with the marquis's consent, wouldn't the matchmaker need 3 to 5 days to prepare? Chen Ziao, fuming, ordered me to stay put and stormed to the main hall to confront him. There was no way I wasn't going. I sneaked along. By the time I arrived, they had already been speaking for some time. Chang Fan Or knelt earnestly before my father. I have adored Zijing since childhood. With your consent, I swear I shall only marry her, protect her for life. Should I fail in this vow, may heaven strike me with lightning and grant me a wretched end. It was the first time I'd seen him so serious. My heart skipped a beat. The young man's performance was convincing. I almost believed him. Seeing my father's hesitation, the marquis steward immediately drafted a list of the betrothal gifts. The marquis's family had substantial assets, and the list was extensive, overflowing with rare food, clothing, housing, medicinal herbs, jewelry, and shops. 98 gifts in total, almost as extravagant as the Empress's dowry, which had 99. I suspected he'd been preparing this for quite some time. And yet, it felt like I'd walked right into a trap. After that, I drifted back to my room in a daze. In my past life, Chang Fan Or and I had little interaction. Later, he supported Ziyan, and our relationship became strained, barely acquaintances. Often glaring at me. Why was this life so different? An hour later, my father cautiously entered, sipping tea and weighing his words. I smiled at him. You agreed? Chen Ziao looked at his daughter's bright face and said timidly. Well, if you don't like it, you could decline. But you know, with the princes vying for the throne, the young marquis may be a rake, but he has a good character and hasn't taken sides. Marrying him is safer and won't involve you in too much trouble. And don't be fooled by his careless demeanor. He knows better. He hasn't misbehaved. If he ever dares to bully you, I'll go after him myself. I watched my father, worried and frowning, cautiously reading my expression, sometimes angry, sometimes gentle. I stepped forward and hugged him. Chen Xiao was startled, feeling the wetness on his neck. Heart-aching. He murmured. What's wrong? My Jing, eh? Don't cry. Don't cry. No marriage. No marriage, I'll take care of you forever. All right. I broke into laughter, tilting my face up to see his furrowed, concerned features. Letting him wipe my tears. I shook my head. I will marry. I'm not that clever. Always getting into trouble. Yet I have the best father in the world. I'm so lucky. Chen Xiao was moved to his core. Blinking back tears. Lightly patting my head. Nonsense. My Zijing is the cleverest. Afraid of crying before me. He stood and left, quickly sharing the news with my mother in the ancestral hall. I watched my father's departing figure and smiled. I didn't know why I had been reborn. But it felt truly wonderful. Behind the screen, a figure stood quietly, hatting fulfilled eye. A small dimple curving at the corner of his lips. And once again, I was fired up. After rejecting the third prince, I was set to marry Yan Jing's most notorious young marquis. I deftly declined all other invitations. After exchanging tokens with the marquis's family, everything proceeded smoothly. The horoscope matched. And the wedding was set for the 15th of next month, only 30 days away. The emperor had been sweet-talked by my father, who argued that he feared I might be bullied. So with a straight face, he granted me the title of Tamaka Keningel. I didn't have many close friends. But when Keningel came to deliver her gift, I made sure I had thought it through before nodding. Her gaze was complicated as she looked at me, her lips tugging in a small, wry smile. On my way out, I ran into Xuan'er. The two of them locked eyes, disaster incarnate. That familiar scene made me pause. Could it be? Keningel liked Xian? Keningel was her childhood name. I hadn't called her that in years. But she was already betrothed to my elder brother. Memories of my past life echoed vividly in my mind. She had been the one to tell me about Xian's preferences and schedule when I was utterly alone. Even after marrying my brother, she often came to hear me vent and offered advice. Zhuya carried out. I realized then why things had always felt off. Why the poison I gave Xuan'er had turned into something deadly. Why every minor quarrel had escalated into life-threatening incidents. I had thought Xuan'er was deliberately making things worse to drive Xian away from me. Turns out, it had always been like this. Everything suddenly came into focus. I laughed at my own foolishness. How could I have been so blind? Zijing? Xuan'er's soft, tender voice reached me, and I looked at her worried face. She hesitated, bit her lip, then said with determined care, Zijing, I know you and Keningel have been childhood friends. But, you don't really need to care too much about what she says. Just follow your own feelings. Okay? Seeing her cautiously remind me with such consideration, I felt I owed her one. Thank you. Xuan'er blinked. Wide-eyed. Huh? She smiled. A tear mole under her eye sparkling. Looking genuinely happy. No, it's I who should thank you. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to return to my ancestral home so smoothly. Let's get along well from now on. She had said the same thing in the past, though I had brushed her off and walked away. This time, I nodded sincerely, marveling quietly she was really beautiful. When I returned Juya to Keningel, her charming face stiffened for a moment. What do you mean? What did Xuan'er say to you? You believe her but not me? I only asked one question. Calmly. How long have you admired the third prince? She paused. I stared into her eyes and said seriously. Just tell me yes or no, and I'll believe you. This time, she was completely silenced, slumping into a chair with a hint of dejection. I returned the crims and jade pendant I had always worn. It was given to me by her when we were 10. One each. From the same jade. I had kept it close ever since. She looked at it silently. I walked down the street with Qian Bai and Huavi. The three of us in silence. Many courtyards along the way had trees. And the sun was just right. Flowers in full bloom. My gloom lifted a bit. when suddenly I heard a familiar voice. Huh? I turned toward the sound and saw a familiar back calling out. Big. Big. I raised an eyebrow at the sign above, RUII Gambling House. At that moment, the boy's little attendant spotted me and flailed at his arm. TCH. What's up? I'm enjoying myself. He glanced back nonchalantly. I smiled at him. Chang fan or froze. Hesitated. Then grabbed me and started pulling me toward the gambling hall. Why? I asked. He turned his head and grinned. The law doesn't punish the crowd if you play too. I won't get beaten. Though women weren't forbidden from entering the gambling hall, I had maintained my gentle, refined persona in my past life and never came. This actually seemed fun. At first, I was still a little reserved, unfamiliar with terms like big leopard, and guessed blindly. I got a few right, my face flushing with excitement. It was really fun. And our past reservation? What was that? I almost grabbed his sleeve and jumped onto the table. Chang fan or watched the rosy-cheeked young lady beside him. So delighted he almost gestured wildly, laughing aloud. Luckily, having fulfilled Xianxia. It was noisy anyway. So Zijing didn't notice her eyes fixed on the dice cups. Chang fan or didn't even glance at the cups. He could tell the numbers just by listening. His attention was on her delicate hands fiddling with her sleeves. Long and slender. Nails pink. She smiled. Eyes sparkling as if tiny stars were trapped inside. And he couldn't help thinking how easy she was to cheer up. I discovered Chang fan or's talent for the first time. He was incredible. He could guess the numbers without even looking at the cups. Holding the 500 tiles I had won, I felt completely relaxed. Irresponsible, isn't it? The man next to me smirked, swinging his little braid. Not heavy. I earned it myself. Not heavy at all. Chang fan or grinned so widely his eyes nearly closed, his dimples deepening. He ruffled my hair while I chattered about the day at the gambling hall. He bought a candied hawthorn for me. And since I had no hands free, he fed me, sneaking bites himself. Before I knew it, we were back at the residence. Thanks to this little adventure, all my lingering gloom had vanished. I lingered at the gate, feeling a little shy about thanking him. How could I explain? I realized I was a fool, had lost a friend, was in a bad mood. Yet luckily he dragged me to play at the gambling hall. He would be proud. He noticed my hesitation, smiled, and tapped my forehead gently. Go on in. Not heavy, right? I paused, thought a moment, and quickly said, thank you for today. Then I dashed inside. Heart racing so fast I almost couldn't breathe. I didn't see him staring after my back, slightly stunned. Life always demands repayment. That night, while bathing, I noticed blue and purple bruises along my arms, embarrassing. From holding silver all the way home. Tomorrow they'd hurt for sure. Phew, I exhaled, stepping out of the tub. I dried my hair, drank some milk, then slipped into a small vest and silk trousers. Already asleep, the man arrived to find Zijing sprawled on the bed, snoring softly. He smiled, watching her. The quilt was over her belly, her fair shoulders exposed. The scene under her vest, just imagining it made his pulse quicken. He closed his eyes, suppressing his desire. Q-tip. He muttered under his breath, then gently applied ointment to her bruised arm. The soft touch under his fingers deep and the color in his eyes. Watching her lips, pink and slightly puckered as she snored lightly. He resisted temptation, only tapping her gently with his index finger. Zijing murmured. Turned over. And the man laughed, pulling the quilt snugly over her. After all, in less than a month, he would get to enjoy her fully. It turned out my father had indeed learned about the trip to the gambling house. I looked at the furious man before me and, to my delight, received the latest bracelet from the Bazin residence. Father had assumed that taking me to such a smoky, chaotic place would terrify my young heart, so he offered a little comfort. I nodded vigorously, having fulfilled my Xianxia. Praising his insight, betrayed Chang fan or with theatrical flair, and scolded him for dragging me into the den of vice. So, when he came to visit again, my father chased him across the entire estate with a rattan cane. I laughed until tears streamed down my face. Days passed, and father hired a retired palace etiquettaire to instruct me. I quietly embroidered my bridal veil. My elder brother returned, dusty and travel-worn. Having left home young and spent years at war, he carried an icy, distant demeanor. So we were never close, though he doted on me. In my previous life, he had been rushing back when father was at the execution grounds. I died without seeing him one last time. He carefully studied me from head to toe, seeming to want to pat my head but hesitating. Afraid to frighten me, I went up and hugged him. "Brother, welcome home." His body stiffened, and he patted my head, touched, saying I had grown. Then he turned with a murderous glare and went off to confront Chang Fan, thinking that his little sister, finally warmed to him, had been whisked away. It was infuriating. I watched my brother's retreating figure and smiled, silently grateful to be alive. So much could be made right. I chuckled at the thought of Chang Fan being chased across the city by my brother. Utterly ridiculous. Completely unaware that, in the duel, my brother had a red tassel-led spear pressed to his throat. After returning, my brother spoke with father in the study. I assumed it was another court matter, but soon word arrived that his engagement to Ken Angel had been annulled. A few days later, news came that Ken Angel had gone to the temple to practice with her hair unbound. I jumped up, intending to find her, but then paused. Why was I looking for her? Shuvai and Qianbai watched me worriedly as I slowly sat back down. They only knew of my falling out with Ken Angel, not the details. I had no intention of telling anyone. Truthfully, hearing the news brought no joy. Few who take vows at the temple return. Why did she do this? Was it only because her engagement was broken? I didn't hate her, not out of saintlings, but because I knew that even without her, I would have ended up the same in my past life. Jealousy had already corroded me beyond recognition, driving me to sabotage Juana relentlessly. Still, knowing she was at the temple didn't make me happy. She was only 17. I wanted a happy ending for both of us. The day Ken Angel left, I didn't go. I'd been bedridden for 10 full days, eating in bed and only leaving to relieve myself, unable to muster energy for anything else. Father and brother guessed someone visited daily, bringing treats. 20 days remained until the wedding. For some reason, that day, Shuvai forcibly bathed me, helping me wash up and change. I didn't understand why, and I flopped back onto the bed listlessly. "I swear, you're the only pig on the estate who eats and sleeps in the same spot," came a casual voice. I looked up, seeing a man leaning against the doorway, his small braids swaying, a playful dimple curving at his lips. "What are you doing here? We can't meet before the wedding." I cast him a glance and flopped back down. "That's 3 days before the wedding. We're not there yet." I pursed my lips, giving no reply. "Ah." He suddenly scooped me up at the waist. I clutched his neck, utterly dumbfounded, as Shuvai slipped away. "Damn. I'll get back at her both." He chuckled lowly at my shocked expression, leaning closer. "After the wedding, there'll be plenty of days you won't leave the bed." I stiffened, heart racing. What did he mean? Planning domestic violence after marriage? "Dare touch me, and my father will kill you." Clenching my teeth, I retorted fiercely. "Who says I can't get out of bed? Huh?" He froze, then laughed even harder. "Well, I'll be looking forward to that." I blinked. Was this man insane? From that day on, I decided to eat properly and exercise, preparing to pummel Chang Fan on the wedding day. Chang Fan watched me run around the courtyard, teasing me endlessly, calling me slow, legs too short. I'd grab him and thrash him in rage. Yet he always seemed mischievously delighted, his dimple daring me to poke it. I did, all the while wondering if his brain had gone soft from the beating. With his playful interruptions, the days flew, and before I knew it, the wedding day arrived. Before dawn, I was roused for hair, makeup, and dressing. My scalp still throbbed painfully from the braiding, making me wince and cry out. The imperial red shoe brocade was embroidered with a vast twin lotus pattern in gold thread, colored with silks, and overlaid with a pale red hai jowie gauze. The gauze was fine, embroidered with delicate silver thread, barely visible, shimmering brilliantly in the sunlight. I stared at myself in the mirror, stunned. Never had I seen myself so beautiful. The rosy cheeks. Coquetous gaze, a truly breathtaking bride. Oh my! The bride is gorgeous. The maid assisting with my makeup exclaimed. I held her hand. No, sister. It's your skill at makeup. Now I truly believed this seemingly youthful woman was 40. With my veil in place, my brother carried me to the sedan chair, whispering, if he dares to bully you, tell me. Worst case, we go home, and I'll take care of you. My eyes ached. In my previous life, I wasn't this close to him. He had always been distant. On the wedding day, he had been silent while carrying me, never chattering like now, a mix of concern and paternal care. I hugged his neck. Brother, you'd better bring a wife home soon too. Always fussing over me. He smiled. I almost lifted the veil, never heard him laugh out loud. In the sedan chair, the Suane horns blared, Chang Fan or rode alongside, tossing wedding money into the crowd. The commoners scrambled and cheered, the atmosphere lively. I sat inside, listening to the laughter outside, my lips curling into an involuntary smile. The wedding ceremony ended, the guests laughing and chattering. And when my veil was lifted, Chang Fan or stood there in his ceremonial robes. His usually loose hair was neatly tied back, and he was staring at me, eyes sparkling. Had I never noticed before how handsome he was? My gaze drifted involuntarily to Xian, who was watching me with a fleeting look of me, but it passed in an instant. I glanced at him, feeling nothing at all. Zhuaner stood beside him, eyes red, looking as if she might burst into tears of emotion. I hadn't even cried. Suddenly, everything turned red as my veil was placed back over my face. A male voice whispered near my ear. Teeth gritted. Looking at someone else in front of your husband. Huh? You're in trouble later. I smiled. So he got jealous? And acting serious about it, too. Back in the room, I lifted my veil. I hadn't eaten all day and was starving. Just about to sneak a small cake from my sleeve, when I heard someone outside call, "Hey young marquis. Slipping away so soon? Keep drinking." Chang Fan or replied. Drink by yourself. Marrying a wife isn't easy for me. Scram. Hey. As soon as he opened the door, he hurried to the bedside, took a deep breath, and lifted my veil. Me, hastily swallowing my little cake. Chang Fan or looked at me with helpless amusement. Come on. Drink the nuptial cup, don't choke. I leaned forward to sip. Qian Bai. Xiao Qi. Shu Vai. And Huavi slipped away while I drank. When I looked up, it was just Chang Fan or and me. Our eyes locked. Where did they go? I haven't eaten yet. Chang Fan or looked at my flushed face from the wine and asked suspiciously. Consort. Father-in-law. Or, nanny. Didn't they give you a little buck? I frowned, thinking for a moment. Seems like they did. In my previous life, I'd accidentally spilled tea on it. The ink had run, but I could faintly see the two of them entangled in a fight. I'd been caught framing Zhuaner and hadn't even seen Ian on my wedding day later on. Even less. Having a meal together was already lucky. This life's cover was similar to last life's. So I didn't look at it. I was busy reading a novel and forgot. When he asked, I said obstinately. That little book of them fighting? I've read it. So? Chang Fan or choked on my words for 2 seconds. Then shook his head and smiled. Honestly, having fulfilled my obsession, there's no dealing with you. I frowned. Was I supposed to learn martial arts as part of getting married? This was too much. Chang Fan or looked at me, a light I couldn't decipher in his eyes. His voice hoarse. He said, it's fine. Who says I'm not patient? I can teach you slowly. I pouted. Unhappy. Do I have to? Can't I skip it? He straddled me, pinning me to the bed, touching my face. You must. I felt warm, instinctively tugging at my collar. But his expression grew even more serious. Eyes deep and intimidating. He leaned closer, just an inch from my face. Holding my hand. Xianxia? My face burned red instantly. Don't call me that. I pushed him, this was way too close. I felt inexplicably panicked. Xianxia. His voice grew huskier. Then out a Wi-Fi. Huh? Hands were wandering over me. I twisted awkwardly. Eh? Why are you taking off my clothes? Eh? Where are your hands going? Oh. Remaining content loading. Xianxia, wake up. Hearing the voice. I frowned. Turned over. And felt the same hands moving over me again. I had to open my eyes and grab the hands. Pouting. I'm not learning anymore. I've practiced all night. It hurts. My body ached, looking at the bruises covering me. This wasn't martial arts at all, I'd been tricked. I wanted to ask my father or elder brother, but couldn't bring myself to. How could I explain that Chang Fan or had tricked me into practicing martial arts? Which turned out. Well, let's say it was painful. Chang Fan or inched closer. Whispering by my ear. I've waited so long. And we're still just getting started. I struggled. But his strength had grown when had that happened? I remembered being able to punch him easily as a child. Finally, having consoled my sai, I failed to resist and was forced to practice a bit more. This was torture. Watching the bed curtains sway. I thought maybe I'd practice myself to death. Too difficult. So this was what getting married was like. On our wedding night. I felt the weight of it all. After sharing a bed with Chang Fan or for a month, I decided to escape to the temple for a few days. No, I would go to pray for peace across the realm. For all living beings' happiness. And to perhaps see an old acquaintance. I happily packed my things with Q and Bai. Xiao Qi. Shu Vai. And Huavi in tow. Ignoring Chang Fan Or's mournful expression. And ran to Yansheng Temple. Yansheng Temple was the foremost temple of Great Yan. Legend said the first abbot had no parents. Born from the lotus pond at the back mountain, pure, untainted, gentle yet upright. The century later. His spirit hadn't departed to paradise but lingered in the temple to help the fated. If one was fortunate to see him, a wish could be granted. Legend had it that the founder of Great Yan, Emperor Yan Wen, encountered the first abbot in the tiny Yansheng Temple and made a vow to save all beings, thus becoming the true dragon emperor. As a child, I always thought it was a ghost story. Think about it, dark moon. Swaying shadows. Alone in a dilapidated mountain temple. When suddenly an unknown spirit pops up, laughing, promising to grant you a wish. Wouldn't you be scared? Personally, I'd probably join the ghost ranks on the spot. After 2 hours of bumpy travel, I finally arrived. Looking at the tall stone steps, my legs trembled. Climbing up, I felt half dead. Falling would probably be the end. At the gate, a young monk, no older than 10, greeted me, radiating an unusual serenity. He led me to the guest room, bowed, and I returned the bow, patting his head. Young monk, and let go. Me. I couldn't help it at all. The sudden surge of motherly affection had completely flustered me. I dug into my little bag and pulled out some candied fruits I had bought but hadn't eaten yet. Do you want these? I offered. The little monk looked at the candies in my hand. The peaceful aura around him slowly faded. And a strange, sparkling glimmer appeared at the corner of his mouth. Thank you, benefactor. But perhaps I shouldn't. He mumbled, staring at the treats. I raised an eyebrow and shoved them into his arms. Take them. Just have them. Well, then, what out a lull sigh. Little monk will accept them. He snatched them and ran off, happy as could be. I watched his retreating figure. A faint smile tugging at my lips. This little monk's name was Sadler. In my previous life, when I was imprisoned in the temple, he was the one who brought me food. The people in the temple hadn't actually treated me badly, it was just that I spent every day wallowing in self-pity and lashing out at anyone who brought me meals. Seeing them chased off in anger gave me a strange sense of satisfaction, as if I were spitefully tormenting Xian. But when they paired me with a mischievous little brat later, I lost interest. Yet I couldn't bear the frustration of being cooped up in the temple. So I would hide in corners and cry like a lunatic. Noticing my constant crying and refusal to eat, he gave me a candied fruit, telling me that when his father had passed, he had cried too, and his mother would give him a candied fruit to ease the pain. I wanted to scoff. How could such a little brat understand my grievances? I was foolish and self-absorbed, thinking I was the most miserable person in the world, never realizing that one small bag of candied fruits might have taken him 3 months to save up for. I tossed the sweets aside and pushed him out with them. But then, turning to scold him, I saw him put the fallen candies off the ground and put them in his mouth. He actually ate them. Honestly, heading Socializing, I may have thought I was the most miserable person alive. But not so miserable that I'd be picking up dropped candied fruit. Even in confinement, I lacked for nothing to eat or drink. That scene shook my gilded worldview to its core. The next day, I gave him a whole bag of candied fruits. His single-lidded eyes practically trembled with joy. His reddened eyes sparkled as he stared at me in gratitude. Then he ran off with the food I had given him. Shit. Later, he became my reluctant companion, tasked with trembling light escorting me around the temple. That's when I realized not everyone wore embroidered finery like I did. I realized the intentionally humble robes in the temple weren't bad at all, they were considered decent by ordinary folk. I realized the rice in the temple was coarse, mixed with unnamable, scratchy grains. I realized what Juaner said about my wastefulness and ignorance of common people's hardships wasn't an exaggeration. I realized some people couldn't even afford a mere ounce of medicine and had to come to the temple for aid. That year, I saw many things I hadn't in the past 20 years and didn't even know existed. Unfortunately, heading fulfilled my idsa. It didn't last. Once I left, I was immediately taken to the execution grounds, empty-handed, and killed myself. Otherwise, I might have quietly arranged a divorce from Xian and swapped my father out as the scapegoat. Though my father's death wasn't solely due to that, he also thought eliminating him would make the emperor suspect no ambitions for the throne. It was all very complicated. And at the time, he disliked me intensely, barely able to hide his disgust. Had it not been for some unknown reason, he might really have snapped me. Life in the temple was always so plain and monotonous. Yet I couldn't resist stealing a glance at Ken and Gel. Okay. Sorry, little saddler. You were just a 2-for-1 deal, incidental company. I was here to see Ken and Gel. As the saying goes, my emotions were complicated. After over 10 years, she was no longer just a friend to me, she was family. I had no sisters, so we always whispered secrets to each other. She had always indulged me like an elder sister, and I didn't believe any of it was false. I crouched by the wall, watching her in plain robes, kneeling before the Buddha, chanting quietly, and I slowly withdrew my gaze. I couldn't reconcile the charming, alluring woman of the past with the serene, desireless figure before me. I felt indebted, hoping that we'd never meet again, but part of me missed her old self. I wasn't particularly clever, but I wasn't stupid either. Chang Fan or had only just met my brother when my brother immediately annulled the engagement. There was no secret or hidden reason. I'd swear on my life, Chang Fan or wouldn't have known this. He must have been secretly watching me for a long time, including the people around me, though he constantly played the part of a lazy, useless glutton. I knew what he did at night when he snuck off, but I never asked. Otherwise, with the old marquis' achievements overshadowing the lord, and the young marquis being so extraordinary, even the emperor might have been restless. The Z family was the same everywhere. Even with the emperor's good relations with my father, a hint of suspicion and he'd move with the current, ordering executions, then feigning deep sorrow and unbearable grief. I lay in the soft chair, staring at the flickering candlelight, lost in thought. In my past life, Chang Fan or had sided with Xian. Getting caught up in court affairs, was it because of me? Then he had rushed to snatch the sword, accidentally stabbing himself. Thinking of him with that devil-may-care, fearless second son attitude, I felt both joy and sorrow. I must have hurt him deeply in my previous life. Realizing this, I understood how deeply I already loved him. Hey, just 3 days apart, and you already missed me to tears? That familiar voice startled me. Seeing him hastily wiping my tears right in front of me, I couldn't help but hug him tightly. I love you so much. Why is it that every time I need you, you're always by my side? Chang Fan or froze at the confession, his mind going blank. He had always thought Zijing aired him merely out of convenience. So, was it that she felt the same way as he did? His hands tight and instinctively holding the small figure in his arms. And in a voice she couldn't hear, he whispered, "Me too." In both past and present lives. In my past life, it was only after Lucien's death that I realized I had wronged him. The woman named Jade had given birth to his child and was living off his bad boy reputation. With only a hint of blood relation, she moved into the Lucien family. Over the next decade, she ruthlessly drove his parents to their deaths, using the child to inherit Lucien's family business. She rose to power in one swift motion. Years later, she smiled at me with feigned sweetness and said, "Sugar, Lucien never cheated on me. I just happened to pick up a little umbrella you two used in a hotel room." With a victorious smirk, she taunted me mercilessly. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back on the day I married Lucien. The officiant held the microphone and loudly said, "Please exchange your rings." And May. Before he could finish, a sharp voice interrupted him. "Wait." I held my aching head. And I saw Lucien's gaze on me, full of deep affection. His high nose, perfect facial features, and expensive tuxedo only added to his noble appearance. I pinched my thigh hard to confirm it. I had been reborn. Back to the day I married Lucien. The turning point in my life. In my previous life, a woman named Yolanda had barged into our wedding. She spoke in great detail of her deep love for Lucien. Despite Lucien repeatedly stating he had never loved her and asking her to leave him alone, the child she carried was like irrefutable proof. Mocking my ignorance and naivety at the wedding, I slapped Lucien hard, tore off my wedding dress, smashed the wedding ring, and left without looking back. In the days that followed, Yolanda used the internet to cry about her deep love for Lucien, begging me to return him to her and asking the Lucien family not to obstruct their love. At the time, Lucien and I were both exhausted. No matter what Lucien said, I no longer trusted him. We argued over and over again, while she, like maggots on rotting flesh, was always there, following us. Lucien died when she gave birth, but it was her crying in the delivery room that got to him. The baby is about to be born, but the father is with another woman. Why is it so hard to love someone? Lucien, you clearly love me. Why do you have to bow to reality and spend your life with a woman you don't love? Her deluded fans cursed Lucien as a scumbag and wished him a miserable death. Everything about Lucien and me was dragged out into the public. When Lucien went out, he was stabbed 11 times by his crazy fans, each wound fatal. After Lucien's death, she cried pitifully to the camera. "Lucien is dead. And I shouldn't be alive either. But what about my child?" Www. Countless people donated to her, encouraging her to live on. She easily amassed millions. But she said to the camera, "This isn't Lucien's fault. It's all Sugar's fault. If she hadn't been so persistent, this tragedy would never have happened. Lucien and I were in love. Lucien loved me, too." She had a diary filled with her so-called memories of Lucien. She used it to accuse me of being the other woman. Lucien had only married me under family pressure. Later, I learned that her so-called diary was nothing more than a novel. Everything she wrote about Lucien was based on her own fantasies, concocted plots. But nearly everyone believed in her deep love for Lucien. They bought into the tragic, heroic tale of their love. As a result, I was viciously cyber-bullied over and over again. No matter how I explained myself, they had already decided that I was the mistress. My family business was repeatedly reported maliciously. Although inspections found no issues, our partners cancelled their collaborations out of fear of trouble. The company declined. I sank into depression from the endless online attacks and ultimately died from cancer. In my final moments, she came to visit me in the hospital. "Sugar, Lucien never cheated on me. I just happened to pick up a used condom from the hotel you just stayed in." She covered her mouth and laughed wildly. "Sugar, I can't have what I want. So I'd rather destroy it than let anyone else have it. And that Lucien. He actually dared to reject me. Those old fools from the Lucien family couldn't stand me? But they can't bear to give up their first grandson. Didn't they just let me control them? They deserve to be driven mad. Oh right. When Lucien had a heart attack, I kicked his medicine away. I even flushed it down the toilet in front of her. Ah. The look of despair in her eyes was exactly the same as yours now. It felt so wonderful. At that moment, I wanted to struggle out of my bed and strangle her. But in the end, I collapsed back on the bed, unable to die in peace. This life. When I saw Yolanda again, hatred surged through my entire nervous system. I wanted nothing more than to tear that woman to pieces. Yolanda walked toward the wedding stage with her swollen belly. And to make sure everyone could hear, she even brought a microphone. Lucien, are you really going to marry someone else? Can you really bear to let our child become an illegitimate child? Just like in my previous life. As her words spread through the wedding hall, there was an uproar. The eyes of everyone turned toward me and Lucien, their expressions odd. Lucien instinctively held my hand and said, "Sugar. Wait for me." Lucien had always been as gentle as Jade. Even in the face of this awkward situation. Even when people were accusing him of being a cheating scumbag, he still tried to reason with Yolanda. Yolanda. We're just classmates. Our relationship was pure. How can there be a child? Sure enough. As soon as Lucien said this, Yolanda immediately took on a pitiful appearance. Tears ran down her face. Lucien. How can you say that? We've known each other since middle school. All the way through high school and college. We shared so much. You waited for me with milk tea downstairs in the dorm. I washed your underwear for you. We watched movies together. Have you forgotten the beautiful moments we once shared? Now, Heatherloo, I have a child. And you're marrying another woman? Lucien. I know you don't love her. As Yolanda spoke, she pointed a finger at me. I remained silent. Unlike my past life, where I had stormed down from the wedding stage in a rush of anger, hatred, jealousy, and a tangled mess of emotions to ruin what was supposed to be my own wedding. I only smiled at Yolanda, beaming with sunshine and warmth. Yolanda appeared momentarily stunned. Her gaze dropped, hiding the venom in her eyes. When she looked up again, her face was drenched in tears. Her sobs echoed through the loudspeakers, filling every corner. Lucien, I can bear this humiliation. As long as you still hold me in your heart. I know you love me. But I can't let our child, our son, become the laughingstock, the despised illegitimate child. With that, she moved in front of Lucien's family and collapsed to her knees with a loud thud. Uncle, having till Xianxia. Aunt. Please. Allow me and Lucien to be together. We truly love each other. Could you really bear to ruin Lucien's happiness for the sake of a family marriage? Lucien's mother looked visibly flustered. Meanwhile, my parents' faces turned pale with anger. My mother grabbed my arm and shouted, "Sugar. Let's go." Hearing my mother's words, Lucien's mother snapped out of her daze, quickly calling out, "In-laws. Lucien is not that kind of child." But Yolanda immediately threw herself at Lucien's mother, clutching her legs, crying out, "Aunt. Lucien has always been filial. He doesn't want to go against your wishes. He loves me. Please. Let us be together." With that, she kowtowed to me, begging, "Sugar. Please. Return Lucien to me." Lucien tightly gripped my hand, saying, "Sugar. Listen to me. There is nothing between her and me. She could never be carrying my child." Lucien's eyes were filled with unwavering determination. He then raised his voice. "Yolanda. We are just classmates. We barely know each other. Please stop talking nonsense and ruining my wedding." He began to explain to my mother, our relatives, and friends. Then, let out a low sigh. He was about to call security to have Yolanda removed. It was just like in my previous life. After a slight moment of confusion, he immediately called for security to throw her out. He thought of Yolanda as nothing but a crazy woman. So, he explained to me, to my parents, and to everyone. But I didn't give him even the slightest trust. In fact, no one there trusted him. When Lucien said he would call security, intending to remove Yolanda, Yolanda stood up, glaring at Lucien. Lucien, are you really that heartless? Do you really want to throw me out? Since you already have your own happiness, I will dye your wedding red with the blood of me and my child. As she spoke, she reached into her bag and pulled out a knife. With a shaky hand, she pointed it at her chest, preparing to stab herself. She cried out, saying she would dig out her own heart to show Lucien and everyone else. The security guards were all stunned. None of them dared to approach her. Everything unfolded exactly as it had in my past life. I remembered the beginning of my misfortune. But in this life, I wasn't panicked at all. I took the microphone from the MC and said loudly, Yolanda, you say you're carrying my husband's child, that you two are truly in love? And you want me to let you be with him? Is that right? May I ask, when exactly did you become pregnant with Lucien's child? I paused for a moment, scanning the room, and then raised my voice. You a filthy, worthless woman, crawling out of who knows which pit, coming here to cry and make a scene at my wedding? Do you even have the right to claim that? You keep saying that my husband and you are in love. Please, provide me with concrete proof. Otherwise, I will sue you for defamation, for publicly slandering my husband. Yolanda looked like she was losing it, shrieking at me. Sugar, how dare you insult me? I held the microphone, speaking directly into it. I'm insulting you. A filthy dog, showing up to ruin someone's wedding. Have you been so desperate for a man that you're now going after my husband? If you don't explain the origin of your so-called child right now, I swear I'll make sure your family is ruined. I then told my mother to call the police. Taking the microphone again, I addressed our family and friends, saying loudly, everyone, witness this woman. She's caused chaos at my wedding, disrupting public order. Whispers filled the air among our relatives and friends. Just like in the past, Yolanda reached into her bag, pulling out a knife, pressing it to her neck, and crying, Sugar, you're forcing me into this. You're taking Lucien away from me. Do you really want to drive us to suicide? I laughed, clearly enjoying the moment. Under everyone's gaze, she was about to kill herself. I sneered. Yolanda, don't be ridiculous. You crashed my wedding. A worthless woman like you really makes my stomach turn. How dare you claim I'm the one forcing you? Unless you tell me where that child of yours really came from, you're not leaving here today. At the mention of the child, Yolanda glared at me with pure hatred. Everyone, just treat this woman as a joke. An appetizer for the evening. With that, I took the ring from the bridesmaid's hands, pulling Lucien's hand towards me to slip it onto his finger. Sugar, do you believe me? Lucien's eyes flickered with worry as he asked. Of course I believe you. I held the microphone, saying, we grew up together, childhood sweethearts. And our world has never once included this woman. As our wedding continued, Yolanda could no longer hold it together, especially after we exchanged rings. The wedding company escorted Yolanda out, resuming the ceremony. By this point, the police had arrived. Seeing them, Yolanda's composure quickly shattered. The police arrived and briefly questioned everyone, their gazes eventually falling on Lucien. I knew what they were thinking. Yolanda was somewhat attractive, with fair skin and large, watery eyes. In the eyes of many, men were all the same greedy pigs, always looking for more than what they had. In my past life, I didn't trust Lucien either. I thought he was just like every other man, using his family's arranged marriage and our childhood bond to his advantage, while secretly favoring soft, delicate women. And in the end, it led to a tragic mistake. But in this life, thanks to my trust, Lucien wasn't as flustered as he had been before. Yes, in my previous life, he had been so frantic because of my lack of trust. Officer, I have absolutely no relationship with her, Lucien said firmly. The child in her womb cannot possibly be mine. He even took the microphone and loudly declared, friends and family, please bear witness if I, Lucien, ever wronged Sugar. May I be struck by a car the moment I step outside. Lying dead on the street. I hurried to cover his mouth. The police officer frowned slightly. Normally, this wouldn't be a big deal. A man was about to marry. And an old lover wasn't happy about it. Causing a scene at the wedding. Making things uncomfortable for the bride. A female police officer gently tried to advise Yolanda. The police were preparing to settle things and take Yolanda away. Seeing that I wasn't fooled, Yolanda knew she couldn't disrupt the wedding anymore. So she started thinking of another way. I knew she planned to bide her time. Carry the baby to term. And then use it as a weapon. After all, once the baby was born and proven to be Lucien's, there would be no way for him to wash his hands of it. Wait. I shouted directly. How could she just leave like that? I blocked Yolanda and said, Yolanda, since you've come to disrupt my wedding, constantly talking about your love with Lucien, now, please explain the situation with the child. As far as I know, you've been harassing Lucien since middle school, and he's been rejecting you all along. Please, tell me, how did this child come about? Lucien snapped back to his senses and urgently told the police. Officer, you must make her clarify where this child came from. I can assure you, there is no relationship between us. There's no way this child is mine. I quickly added, Officer, I suspect she used illegal methods. Stealing someone else's sperm to carry out her plot. Disrupting social morals. Hearing this, the officer couldn't help but glance at Yolanda. But Yolanda's eyes flashed with a cruel gleam. As she lifted her head, her face was wet with fake tears as she looked at Lucien. Lucien. How could you say that? Do you remember that day at the sushi club? You said you couldn't give me a wedding. But you could give me your love. You treated me like I'd never been touched before. Forcing me to do it with you. Yeah. The second time. You forgot to use a little umbrella. I reminded you. You said you were going to marry a woman you didn't love. But you had no choice. Your family had arranged it. A family alliance. She cried out in a pitiful tone as she spoke these shameless words. Several of our relatives and friends in the crowd still seemed to believe her. After all, her emotional display was convincing. With tears and sobs all too real. In my previous life, I'd fallen for it. too. I also believed that Lucien was just another scumbag man. Sleeping around and fathering a bastard child. Lucien snapped. His voice stern. Yolanda. When did I ever go to the sushi club with you? When did I ever say such disgraceful things to you? Yolanda covered her face and sobbed. Lucien. I know you were forced into it. I don't blame you. But our child is innocent. I don't want him to be a bastard. I didn't wait for her to finish. I interrupted sternly. Yolanda. Which day was it at the sushi club? If it really happened like you say, I'll let you have what you want. As I spoke, I handed her the microphone and raised my voice. Tell me, Henning Hofildnayad Sushern. Tell us. Which day was it at the sushi club? You should know. Today is my wedding. You're disrupting my wedding for no reason. You need to give me an explanation. Yolanda looked up, her eyes sharp and venomous. Like a snake's. The malice behind her false stares was growing, spreading further and wider with every passing second. Her face, the one I hated with all my heart, was now right in front of me. I had to fight to suppress the urge to rush at her and tear her to shreds. Sushi Club. July. I turned to Lucien. Lucien thought for a moment before suddenly sneering. Yolanda. Since I've known you, you've been making up lies. But I never thought you'd fabricate something this outrageous. On July 1st, I was at the office all day. And that night, I accompanied a client. Didn't get home until the early hours. This deal was extremely important for me and the company. So I would never forget or mix up the details. On July 2nd, I did go to the sushi club. And yes, Sugar and I rented a room there. We stayed until the early morning of the 3rd. And Sugar drove me to the airport. This really has nothing to do with you. Does it? On the 3rd, I went to America. And didn't return until August 5th. I smirked, my gaze falling on Yolanda's belly. And I said, looking at that belly, it's definitely a July baby. Just not sure where this bastard came from. Anyway, heading filled my absai. It has nothing to do with us. Yolanda. Stop clinging to my husband. Talking about love. You've got some random man's child in your belly. And you still dare to say you love Lucien? Sure enough. With my words. Yolanda lost control. She suddenly jumped up, rushed in front of me, and started tearing at my wedding dress. Screaming in fury. She shouted. Sugar. How? How dare you marry Lucien? He'll never like you. He's mine. I've even got his child. I'll tell you. The child in my belly is Lucien's. That day, yes. July 2nd. After you left. I found a used condom in your room. She pointed at me. Laughing wildly. Her hand caressing her belly. What good does it do for you to marry him? I'm carrying his child. I have his baby. I turned to the photographer and asked. Did you record everything? The photographer, who probably never expected to be filming something like this at a wedding, had just witnessed a scandalous turn of events. And now, he had to deal with the fallout. With a nervous smile, he replied, Don't worry. Sugar. It's all recorded. Yolanda pointed at the photographer. Then at me. So what if you recorded it? I'm pregnant with Lucien's child. Tell me. Sugar. Does that disgust you? One day. I'll bring the child to you every day. Asking for living expenses. At this. Yolanda looked at Lucien and suddenly leaned in. Calling out. Lucien, let out a low sigh. Our baby is moving. Feel it. See, let out a low sigh. He's kicking me. Do you think it's a boy or a girl? My mom says I have the face of someone who'll have a son. Either way. You and I are tied together for life. This child is the bond of our love. You can't escape it. She looked at me with a cold sneer. Sugar. What are you going to do? You used money and power to steal Lucien away from me. But it doesn't matter. I'm the one who's carrying the heir of the Lucien family. I wanted to ask. What kind of cult had brainwashed this woman? Lucien's face was pale. And his lips trembled. For years. Yolanda had been causing trouble for him. Professing her so-called love. Time and time again. He rejected her. He had once mentioned her to me. They were classmates. And back in middle school. Yolanda had injured her leg during a physical education class. Lucien and a few other boys had carried her to the school gate and called an ambulance. Yolanda had no money. Lucien paid for her medical bills upfront, but Yolanda's family never reimbursed him. The Lucien family was wealthy. For Lucien, the money wasn't a big deal. He was happy to help when he could. But little did he know. That brief act of kindness didn't lead to good karma. Instead, it was like the story of the farmer and the snake. He had destroyed his life by being compassionate. Get rid of the child. Lucien said coldly. I will never acknowledge this. Thing is my child. You are shameless. Lucien's voice trembled with anger. For he knew that if Yolanda gave birth to the child, with her malicious intent, she would never stop. He asked the police if he could force Yolanda to abort the child. The police said that while Yolanda's actions did violate public order and some laws, no one had the right to force her to terminate the pregnancy. Yes, we didn't have the right. But, as the saying goes, evil will eventually meet its match. Having died once before, I was ready. Suddenly, an older woman sprang from the crowd, grabbing Yolanda by the hair and slapping her across the face, yelling, patting fulfilled Lansai. You little bitch. You've ruined my son. My son took out high-interest loans for you and even tried to kill himself. Now, he's hiding somewhere. You're seducing Lucien. And now you've had a bastard child with him. If you don't give me an explanation today, I'll beat you to death. With a loud shout, the relatives from both my family and the Lucien family regained their senses. Especially after learning that Yolanda and Lucien had never been romantically involved, and that she had gotten pregnant after picking up a discarded gas mask. They were all furious. So, a group of people rushed forward, pulling her hair, twisting her legs, slapping her chest and stomach. A few police officers just stood there at first, watching for a few minutes before stepping in to stop the chaos. They pulled Yolanda away. She clutched her stomach. And I noticed there was blood starting to stain her dress. After the spectacle, the hotel staff quickly cleaned up, and the wedding continued. During the break, I found Akila. Earlier, amidst the chaos, I had told my mom that I was going to find Akila in the crowd. Akila was the type to gossip and make up stories. In other words, she and Yolanda were the same kind, though Akila would stay home and complain. Not cause trouble without reason. I had given her a good talk earlier and slipped her an oversized red envelope. Now, she immediately jumped into action. Started cursing. And gave Yolanda a good beating. Akila. I think that woman won't let this go easily. I still need your help. As I spoke, I pulled a thick red envelope from my purse and handed it to her. Akila pretended to refuse. But then snatched the envelope and shoved it into her pocket, proudly declaring she would deal with that little prostitute. I warned her. This is a law-abiding society. So we can't go too far. She nodded, understanding. In the past, if a woman bled while pregnant, the child would certainly be lost. But with modern medicine, Yolanda somehow managed to keep the baby. I was so furious I could barely contain myself. Finally, petting Sylfeldme, the wedding came to an end. That night, Lucienne held me close, whispering in my ear, "Sugar. Thank you." "Thank me for what?" I smiled, feigning confusion. "Thank you for trusting me." He smiled gently, his forehead resting against mine. And I could smell the faint scent of his cologne. I felt so thankful to have been given a second chance at life. "We've grown up together. How could I not know your true nature?" I replied. As I said this, a hint of guilt crept over me. In my past life, had I trusted him, he might not have died. But this life was different from the last. In my previous life, on the night of my wedding to Lucienne, both of us were bombarded with online attacks. He was painted as the scum who got a woman pregnant and abandoned her, while I was the vicious woman who used underhanded means to bully innocent girls and steal love. This time, it was Yolanda who found herself under a similar attack. I took the video and photos of her causing a scene at my wedding, edited them, and had someone write a post about it. I then paid for promotion to make sure it went viral. By nightfall, the news exploded. Trashcan picked up a poison umbrella, resulting in pregnancy. Dream girl takes a risk. Gold digger will stop at nothing to stick to rich heirs. The hashtags quickly hit the trending list. The public was devouring the drama. And everything about Yolanda was dragged out into the open. Her photos and personal information were plastered across social media and men's bathrooms. But it didn't stop there. The next day, when Yolanda was in the hospital to protect her pregnancy, a greasy, disgusting man showed up and started harassing her. "Yolanda, I love you so much. Why can't you give me a chance? How dare you carry someone else's child? Just get rid of it. And come be with me. Stop being materialistic. No one will like you. A filthy woman like you deserves only me." The creepy man forced her to drink milk tea he had stolen for $1, and gave her a fake flower worth $2. He recorded a video and posted it online, claiming he had loved Yolanda for years. He said when she got injured during a sports class, it was him who carried her to the hospital, and that was when he began to like her. But Yolanda was a gold digger, only interested in rich heirs. While Yolanda lay in the hospital, this man claimed to be her boyfriend and stayed by her side. And of course, he didn't stop there, he also groped her. This man was Aquila's useless son. His every action and word was taught by me. I decided to treat her with her own methods. An eye for an eye. Of course, this wasn't the end of it. In my past life, I had entangled myself with Yolanda for quite a while, so I knew her family well. She came from a family that valued boys over girls. Back then, the country had not yet opened its two-child policy, and family planning was strictly enforced. In their desperation to have a son, her family was heavily fined. Her parents and elders were always dissatisfied with her. But she was good-looking and a good student. And not all families were strange or dysfunctional. Although her family favored her younger brother, they still treated her decently and gave her what she needed. That is, until external factors disrupted everything. For instance, at this very moment, I went to Yolanda's mother and revealed all the shameful things her daughter had done. Of course, Yolanda's mother already knew about the scene at my wedding and a trash can pregnancy scandal. The situation had gone viral and her neighbors couldn't help but gossip. Some of them criticized her behind her back, while others openly scolded Yolanda's mother. Everyone, regardless of who they were, cared about their face, and Yolanda's mother was no different. I went straight to the point when I met Yolanda's mother. Yolanda, I don't want your daughter to have that bastard child. My tone was blunt, and I deliberately raised myself above her, not even looking at her properly. Yolanda's mother sat across from me, clicking her tongue. I spoke coldly. With the things she's done, I can sue her for illegally using someone else's sperm. I could get her locked up for a year or more with no problem. I asked a lawyer yesterday. Yolanda's mother still didn't react. I scoffed. Yolanda's mother. Do you know what this means? What does it mean? She asked, though her eyes were darting around, avoiding mine. It means your son will never be able to take the civil service exam. I sneered. As for your daughter, I don't care. You can let her cause trouble if you like. Maybe you think it'll be a nuisance to us. But that's her own doing. But when she breaks the law, it will affect your son, and your future grandson. For a moment, Yolanda's mother looked flustered. There's 100 yuan in this card. I pulled out a bank card and pushed it toward her. As long as she doesn't give birth to that child, she and I will have nothing to do with each other. Yolanda's mother. I think you should know what to do. Once this is done, I'll give you 200 more. You can buy your son a car, or use it as a down payment for a house. Without hesitation, Yolanda's mother snatched the card and asked, Are you serious? I nodded and smiled. The only person I hate is Yolanda. With that, I grabbed my bag and left. I hired a few paparazzi to keep an eye on Yolanda's family. That night, Yolanda's mother stormed into the hospital and beat her daughter. 3 days later, the paparazzi informed me that Yolanda had miscarried. Yolanda's mother had gone to the hospital, causing chaos, and the doctors and nurses had to intervene to stop her. But even the hospital staff looked down on Yolanda. After all, a woman who picks up a used poison umbrella from a trash can, gets pregnant, and shamelessly crashes someone's wedding, claiming to love a man who has no relationship with her? It was too much. Most of the nurses were women, so they could easily sympathize with the situation. If their own husbands were being targeted by such a lowly woman, how would they feel? By evening, Yolanda was discharged from the hospital. When I got home, chaos broke out in my family. This had not been part of my plan. The paparazzi told me that Yolanda's brother, who was only 2 years younger than her, had been in a relationship with a girl. They were getting along well, even discussing plans to buy a house together. But after Yolanda's scandal was exposed, the girlfriend immediately blocked him, and her family even sent someone to tell Yolanda to stop bothering them. A family like theirs would never marry into theirs. Yolanda had been in a loving relationship with her girlfriend, but suddenly, the girlfriend broke up with her. And it was a harsh, resolute breakup, no room for reconciliation. She told him, You and your sister are blood relatives. You can't let go of her. What she's doing now, causing trouble at someone's wedding, is shameless. She's disrupting the life of a legitimate wife. Who knows what twisted things she'll do in the future. Being with you is like having a ticking time bomb next to me. It's too dangerous. Yolanda had no words to respond. When she returned home, she was met with the furious wrath of her family. She was beaten badly. This time, without the police intervening, she had a miscarriage. Her mother, fearing she would die at home, called for an ambulance, dragging her away. To get the final payment from me, Yolanda's mother sent me photos of Yolanda being carried onto the ambulance, blood staining the stretcher. When I confirmed that Yolanda had lost the baby, I breathed a sigh of relief. I gave Yolanda's mother the 20,000 and as agreed, and then went on my honeymoon with my husband, Lucien. As long as Yolanda didn't have the child, she couldn't cause any more trouble. The chaotic rumors on the internet were soon replaced by other news. Lucien and I settled into a routine. Without Yolanda, Lucien naturally wouldn't die. He took over the family business. And our business thrived. The following year, I was pregnant. Lucien's mother, my mother-in-law, was overjoyed when she heard the news. I knew she loved children. Otherwise, in my past life, Yolanda wouldn't have been able to control her with the child so easily. Epilogue. 3 years later, I saw Yolanda in a psychiatric hospital. She was on the verge of death, begging to see me. I went to see her. After her miscarriage, she didn't recover well and was discharged from the hospital. She developed gynecological issues, and her health quickly deteriorated. Her family had completely abandoned her. She couldn't find a job, and no one would hire her. In desperation, she had to resort to scavenging for a living. But she was still a young woman, with some beauty left. Eventually, a few homeless men targeted her, violated her, and even broke her legs. She nearly died on the street. Fortunately, Hedon fulfilledly, a good Samaritan, called the police. And after a long series of events, she was sent to this psychiatric hospital. She seemed to have gone mad, claiming she could see the future. She even said she had a child. The stench in her hospital room was unbearable. When Yolanda saw me, her eyes glinted with hatred. "Sugar, you won't die a good death," she struggled to curse at me. "You killed my child. And you still." I smiled and asked, "What else did I do? Did I steal your Lucien?" She spoke of her deep love for Lucien with each word. After all, in the past life, didn't you exhaust all your schemes, only to be tortured to death by your own son? Some things, once you do them, you're doomed to a miserable end. In my past life, Yolanda had driven the Lucien family to their death, but her son inherited her fantasy of love. He fell for a woman in her 30s who worked at a hair salon. At that time, Yolanda, considering herself part of the upper class, forbade her son from being with that woman. But her son and daughter-in-law tricked her and pushed her down the stairs. She broke both her legs. In the following 3 years, her seemingly filial son secretly tortured her. In my past life, I had once been a ghost for a time. Looking at her pitiful state, I couldn't help but wonder how many times I wanted to ask her, "Do you regret it?" In my past life, I had no chance to ask. But now, in this life, I was curious. "Yolanda, do you regret it? You could have had a great life. Why did you choose to ruin it?" She closed her eyes for a long time before speaking. "He doesn't love me. So why should he help me? It seems that the fantasy of love is truly beyond saving." As I walked out of the psychiatric hospital, I felt the warm sun on my face, the breeze soft and the day bright. The end.